Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. It being 7 o'clock and a quorum present, I am going to call this September 10th meeting of the Plymouth Planning Board to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on March 28, 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote and in-person participation. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so via the Zoom meeting application located on the town website or in person. First on our agenda tonight are administrative notes, beginning with the minutes of August 13 of 2025. Do I have any questions, comments, corrections from members of the board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Bennett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Mand. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll in alphabetical order. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Bless you.
I guess that was a yes.
Mr. Grandy, if you dare.
Achoo, yes.
Mr. Mand?
God bless
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And myself, yes. We have no covenants, plans, releases, or Form A plans, so I will go to announcements, and I have just the one announcement this evening. I have been informed that the town has just received formal confirmation from the state that we are now in the 2-year safe harbor for unfriendly 40B projects. So as of this point, for the next 2 years, we may reject proposed 40Bs and will not subject to override via the state. This is due to the fact that we now have a certain number representing a percentage of our total housing of affordable units that have been approved within this year. So as a result of that singular event or collection of events, since you can actually aggregate a certain number of affordable units, but because we have approved a certain number of affordable units, we now are in 2-year safe harbor. That doesn't stop people from coming to the town and proposing 40Bs. It just merely says that if we don't like what you're proposing, we can say no, and the state cannot override us, at least for that period of time. So it's a little bit of a breather, folks, before we know the next wave that will eventually come as we continue this process. But I'm pleased to at least announce for that 2 years, we have some working room to try and get ourselves underneath some of these ideas and issues. Next on our agenda this evening, we have a committee appointment for the Plymouth Center Steering Committee. Maria Reitman. Ms. Reitman, why don't you please come up to the microphone? Good evening.
Hello.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to serve on the Plymouth Center Steering Committee?
I moved to Plymouth from Newton, Massachusetts. We've maintained the summer residence for years, but about 4 years ago we moved here for good. But I've been a resident of Plymouth since 2005. The town is dear to me. My kids are here, my grandkids go to school here, so it's extremely important to me that the town continues to thrive, and I now have time to put into serving the community. I work full-time, but I can also contribute time into serving the community, and I'm hoping that my experience and my background could be helpful.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and your background that you...
I work in software. I did program and project management and solutions architecture and all kinds of projects in IT and software. And client management, vendor management, all kinds of roles.
Okay, great. Why don't I open it up to the board and see if anybody has any questions for you. Mr. Mand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maria, do you live in the downtown area?
I'm sorry?
Do you live in the, is this the volume not up?
You just need to speak up a little bit.
Do you live in the downtown area?
I live in Manomet,
Okay. This is the
Indian Brook.
Plymouth Center Steering Committee. So do you find, is there a specific motivation then why you want to be involved in the Center Steering Committee? Do you find a particular issue that needs to be dealt with?
Not really. I just feel that Plymouth Center is the face of Plymouth and is extremely important as a representation of the town.
Thank
So
you.
I think it's very important to preserve it.
Anything further, Mr. Mand?
No.
Mr. Donaldson, any questions?
Have you served in any of the committees in the past, and what were those committees?
No, I have not. This is my first experience. I have not, like I said before, I was pretty busy raising the family and working, but now I have time and I feel that I can really contribute to the committee.
And what do you feel your role will be or is as a committee member?
I understand that this is about reviewing the projects and initiatives that would shape the future of the Plymouth Center and analyzing if it's good for the community and for the town and expressing my opinion on that. That's how I understand it.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Mr. Bennett? No questions. Mr. Grandy?
Through the chair, welcome. Thank you for volunteering. It's always good to get fresh, new
Thank you.
ideas and new people into all of the volunteer positions on different
Yeah.
committees.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for applying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. Mr. Smith? Oh, ma'am? Ms. Reitman? Not done yet.
No questions.
Now it's my turn. I have one or two, just a couple. Have you attended any of the steering committee meetings?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not. I've read about the committee, but I haven't attended any meetings.
Okay. Is there
Do
a
you think
reason?
I should before volunteering for it?
I always recommend it, but it's not a prerequisite, but I do always recommend it. Have you considered volunteering for the Cedarville Steering Committee where you live? Sorry, Manomet.
Manomet.
Manomet, thank you.
Well, yeah, the neighborhood is actually at the border of Manomet and Cedarville.
Ellisville is right at
technically.
the edge there, yes.
No, I have not, because it does not have the same significance to me as a Plymouth Center. I do volunteer in my own community, in the neighborhood, and do a lot of work there, but as far as the center, I think Plymouth Center has very special significance.
I would certainly agree with you that Plymouth Center, as the heart of our community, does have a great deal of significance. But one of the roles of the steering committee is to serve as a voice for the residents, for the community, to bring issues that they're facing to the attention of the planning board and the select board. Those are the appointing bodies for the steering committees. So it becomes a little bit more challenging for you to do that if you're not living in that community and hearing or experiencing those problems as a resident of that particular area. And that's, I think, that's the reason that this has become a question with respect to this committee, is that while your experience and your knowledge would be invaluable on any committee, it's a matter of making sure that for the steering committees, that in addition to considering projects on an objective level, you also need to consider them on a subjective level, as someone who would have to live with those projects on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't live in that area, it's hard to present that type of perspective and represent other people who do have to live with them. You understand the concern that I think this committee might be raising?
I agree with you. If I think that there's a prerequisite for people serving on this committee to be living in a center, then it's very understandable.
Yeah, I don't think that we've ever established clearly that it is a prerequisite, but I think we've established that it is a preference. But I will, again, leave that to the committee as we discuss that.
I mean, I totally understand if this is not something that would be useful. I would, I just figured that this is very obvious. Plymouth Center is something that we all love and cherish, and, I'm here like at least once a week or twice a week. So, but I understand that people living in the neighborhood have different perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further from any committee members?
I have another question.
Please, Mr. Donaldson, go ahead.
Ma'am, do you know or have any other friends or know some of the business owners in the downtown area in the center?
I do. I do have friends who live in a fairly historic house in downtown. They love living there. They're very happy. They moved from Needham about 5 years ago, and they just count their blessings every day, literally.
And what about some of the business owners
No,
in the downtown
I
area?
don't know anybody who has businesses in Plymouth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to support.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I will call the roll. Again, alphabetical order. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Mand?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
I will vote no for the reasons that I've said, but nonetheless, that doesn't change anything. Congratulations, you have been appointed. Please make sure that you get sworn in at the clerk's office. You're not a committee member until you are sworn in by the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate it. Next on our agenda this evening, we have ZBA 4178, 9 Fuller Road, Richard Guerra. And this body is advisory to the ZBA, so we will be issuing an advisory vote, and obviously the final decision is the ZBA. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the planning board. My name is Rick Guerra, as we mentioned. My wife Rose, my brother Stephen. We're here to, have a project proposed to take a piece of land from which is my brother's property and move it over to our piece of land, which is both my brother and Rose and I's property. We've been at 14 Allen Drive since '54, and it's a sentimental place. It was built by my father. It's, we used to be 203 Allen Drive when we were growing up, and we're looking to take part of 209 Fuller, which was once 4 lots, 204, 205, 212, and 213, but it's been somewhere along the line changed to the 1 lot. And so we were proposing to take what was 204 and put it together with 203, which is currently 14 Allen Drive. My brother Steve actually cleared a little bit of land on 204 so we can park off the street on 14 Allen. So we're already using that, and we're just trying to do this now before, we're all getting older, and eventually this will be our kids that'll take over these properties, and we don't know if they'll, I know 14 Allen will stay in the family, but we don't know what will happen with 9 Fuller down the road, so we're trying to also preserve a little buffer on our area. There's no plan to build, no change in density, intensity, or occupation. It's just more, just a little, a little bit of buffer there. So that's the intention of what we're trying to do. Now, what I didn't realize is when we knocked that 24,000 square foot lot that used to be 6,000 square foot lots. It put us into this special permit. So that's where we are now, and, that's what we're trying to do. I'd say, again, no building plans, or, I don't even think you have plans to even sell or do anything with 9 Fuller, but we just don't know later. We're trying to figure this all out now, before this all becomes our kids' headache.
Great, thank you. I'll bring this back to staff.
Thank you. So there's a provision in our bylaw that allows for 15,000 square foot lots by special permit, and that's what's before the ZBA, before you for a recommendation tonight. So what we have here is there are 2 properties, 14 Allen Drive and 9 Fuller Drive. The 14 Allen Drive is not an issue. So you have a 6,000 square foot lot now. What they're looking to do is make that lot 15,000 square feet. So it becomes more conforming. So there's no issue with 14 Fuller Drive. It's making it bigger. The special permit is for 9 Fuller Drive, which is now 24,000 square feet in size, and they want to make it 18,000 square feet, which is still above that 15,000 square foot special permit provision. In the end, it's 2 houses on these lots. It's the same as what's now. It's really just a lot line adjustment. This provision, instead of trying to deal with a variance or some of the other issues, they're fortunate that the special permit process is here. So you have these 2 houses on these lots, and when it's done, it'll still be just 2 houses. One lot becomes a little bigger, and the other one becomes a little smaller. And again, no objections from staff.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the room wishing to be heard on this matter? Seeing no one, is there anyone on the Zoom feed who wishes to be heard on this matter?
If you're on Zoom and like to be heard, raise your hand. Virtual hand. I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay. While it may not have been included in our packet, I have received
There's
several...
a hand.
Oh, Lee, do we have a...
That was Carl.
Yes, but he's pointing out there is a virtual hand.
There's a virtual hand.
Oh, okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes.
Good evening. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just had one question. I am on the abutting land. I'm at 22 Allen. So I am lot, I believe it's 206. And I just had a question on the lot 205. When he says buffer, I'm just curious on that land, what's going to happen. That today is green space. We've been there all our lives, and my wife's family, and I was just curious what's going on there.
So we're 214 is 203, 204, 205, we're proposing 204. 205 will stay part of 202, 12, and 13, which is 9 Fuller. It's just going to be like an L-shaped lot. That house is already there. There's no plans to do anything with any of that. It's just, as we said, a lot line adjustment. We're already using part of 204 because that's my brother Steven's land, as the driveway for 14 Allen, I should say, but I kind of go back to the old days, 203, when it was lot numbers. So eventually, that could become an issue if, down the line this is inherited and they want to sell or do whatever. We're just trying to carve that out. Yes.
Okay, so just so again, for people who know, the process here is if you want to ask a question, you ask a question of the planning board. The board then decides whether or not to ask the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You kind of jumped the gun there. Again, you were the only one who could answer the question, so it was perfectly fine. But we do like to try and keep the process so we make sure that we don't end up with a lot of back and forth.
Sure.
But that said, so, sir, you heard the answer, and of course, obviously, this board only has control over certain zoning aspects. Other bodies have control over whether or not construction can take place in certain areas. And with respect to clearing of lots, there's very limited control that either body, this board or the town has, other than obviously to require certain drainage and other protections be afforded. But you've heard from the proponent that he is not intending, nor is his brother on the adjacent lot intending to do any construction whatsoever, that this is really merely an administrative lot line movement. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great. And do you have any further questions?
Say that again?
Do you have any further questions?
No, no.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I was just about to say, so we do have a few of the abutters who sent letters in. Again, most of this is really the same question that was just asked by the person on Zoom, which is in essence, we don't know what's going on with respect to the property. So following our vote, whatever that may be, you're going forward to the ZBA. I will suggest that you reach out to your neighbors and just reaffirm this. Let them know that this is what you're proposing, that you're not really proposing any physical changes to the property, just to give them that level of comfort, because they did send in letters essentially saying, we're worried about this because we don't know what's going on.
So could I?
Please, go
I
ahead.
had talked to several of the neighbors, so when you read the ad, the way that was posted, it made it sound like you might be building something there. You know, if we did nothing, and then that lot gets sold, someone can do something on that whole big lot, you know? So we're trying to kind of save that, so like, yeah, you know, that you guys get rid of that lot, and one big lot, they could put, I don't even know what I don't know what the rules are these days. It could be multifamily, who knows? So that's not our intent at all.
Very good.
I will speak to, neighbors. I have spoken to several of them, because after I read that advertisement, it did sound, I said, it was a little confusing.
Sounds good. I will bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Bennett?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, just the comment that this looks like basically to split the land between the houses more equally. So I'm in favor of it.
Great. Mr. Smith?
Question for Lee, for staff. Is there any change in the ability to build additional dwellings on this property, or does that stay the same as just two?
No, so you certainly would be entitled to enlarge it as long as you met the setback requirements, but you could not, there's no ability here for another unit. I would point out that in any property, you have the ability now by state law for a ADU, but not a separate dwelling unit. And that would all have to meet Title V septic requirements too.
Okay, thank you. And no questions for the applicant.
Mr. Mann?
No questions.
Mr. Donaldson?
My question was asked in regards to would the other lot be buildable? And I think I want to, because this is my neighborhood, and there's already a lot of turmoil and issues in regards to some things in our neighborhood that's going on. And I think I want to accuse myself from this proceeding.
Fine.
in regards
You
this
wish to,
property.
you're going to recuse yourself from this item?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Mr. Grandy?
Through the chair, I have no questions.
Very good. I have no questions as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anything further? Discussion from the board? Seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with
Second.
staff's recommendations.
Okay, so I have a motion to recommend to the ZBA approval, and I have a second from Mr. Bennett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll, alphabetical order again. Mr. Bennett?
Recommend to approve.
Mr. Donaldson abstains. Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Mand?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So, thank you very much, sir. Good luck at the ZBA. Next on our agenda this evening, we have ZBA 4181, 40 Avenue B, Maureen Paquette. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Chris Sanderson with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors, and I'm here representing the petitioner and owner of 40 Avenue B, Maureen Paquette, who is here with me tonight. Okay, so the figure we have up on the screen here depicts the existing current site conditions over on the left and our proposed conditions for the project on the right. So I'll give the board a brief overview of both, and then happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments from you guys. So the property, 40 Avenue B, is just under a 20,000 square foot lot located on Avenue B, which is a private right-of-way, currently a gravel traveled way that traverses along Avenue B. Avenue B is only about 16.5 feet wide in front of the subject property. Currently, there's an existing one-story, very small cottage located right at the front of the lot here. Actually, a portion of that structure encroaches over that front property line with the front stoop. It's just about 20 by 20 or 400 square feet, currently used as a two-bedroom cottage. A couple residential properties surrounding the dwelling. There is also a isolated vegetated wetland located on a pretty big portion of the rear yard here. We have been through conservation as part of this process with this proposal. We have received an order of conditions on the project, so I do just want to mention that. But again, dealing with that wetland, the existing setbacks, we were up against a fair amount of constraints in siting the new home on this lot. Currently, the existing cottage is serviced by two cesspools that are behind the rear of the dwelling. One of those cesspools is actually within that isolated wetland vegetated area, which is definitely not a great scenario. Just want to point out this wetland. We actually started this project back in 2021. The wetland limit was at this red line here, and we came back and redelineated it when the project got back going again back in 2024, and that wetland had increased pretty substantially. We can attribute that to a number of factors. One, this is essentially the lowest lying area in the neighborhood, so a lot of the surrounding off-site runoff makes its way onto the Paquette's property. Avenue B, there's been a lot of new development, upgrading of that, so a lot of stormwater makes its way down right into the wetland from the sides, back, kind of all directions. So just, again, something we were up against when designing this project. Now for what we are proposing, so again, proposing to raise the existing cottage, construct a new single-family dwelling. This dwelling is 2 stories rather than 1. The dimensions are 32 by 20, so 20 feet wide, 32 deep, with a small screened porch, which is 15 feet deep by 10.5 feet wide. So the goal with siting the footprint of this structure was to predominantly hold the horizontal footprint of what exists today. So within the required 20-foot front setback that we're up against as a pre-existing non-conforming structure, we are fully within that existing footprint. We're not expanding horizontally in any other direction, not increasing nonconformities in that regard. We're here before you tonight for the second story, which is considered the expansion of that structure. The house is slightly bigger, but that expansion is beyond that minimum required 20-foot setback. Just a couple other components I'd like to point out that I think are absolutely project benefits. I mentioned the cesspool that's located in the wetland. We have designed and permitted through the Board of Health a new Title V compliant septic system tucked up in the corner here. Again, the goal of that was to get it as far away from that wetland area in the back. We have also proposed some on-site grading. I think everyone in the neighborhood's well aware, and Maureen made me aware of some drainage issues that occur Kind of in this area, along adjacent to the traveled way, it's a little bit of a low-lying area that water will pond. So the intent as part of this single-family project is to regrade everything. So not only the on-site runoff stays on property and makes its way to this low-lying area, but there's no ponding issues up here, and all that runoff travels via swales and grading back to the low-lying area. You probably noticed there's a lot going on with this plan. Just one other quick thing I'll point out that occurred during the conservation permitting process. We actually ended up coming to an agreement with them to fill this newer portion of wetland that's expanded in the past couple years and replicate it in some upland areas that we had available at a 1.5 to 1 ratio. So we're just taking away square footage of wetland, filling it, making the backyard better, and replicating at 1.5 times the amount of additional wetland area. So that, you know, provides more area, volume, just an overall better drainage situation for the property, which is pretty much unavoidable to, you know, take on the brunt of that burden of the drainage in the neighborhood. We did include several abutter letters of support in the filing you might have seen. We are currently working with engineering. There were some minor comments from them. I actually have a meeting in the morning with Rick Bossy, the acting town engineer, just to work out a couple more. But we'll be submitting a revised plan with response to those comments tomorrow, prior to the ZBA hearing Monday. I think that just about covers everything. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you. To staff?
Thank you. So this is Avenue B. It's in Manomet. It's located off Taylor Ave in that section of Manomet. So currently, the building that's on the site has a 0 front yard setback. They're looking to increase it to 3.6, so it's an increase. This is before the ZBA because it's a non-conforming lot, non-conforming structure by setback. So I think the original intent here was to reconstruct what was there, but they found out that that structure was in tough shape. So this is a demolition and then essentially building the same footprint, but having an improved setback and a new Title V system. So again, from what we can see from a staff standpoint, the nonconformity is actually decreased with an increased setback of 3.6 feet. And again, we have a favorable recommendation presented to you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to be heard on this matter? Seeing no one, is there anyone on Zoom wishing to be heard on this matter?
If you'd like to be heard on Zoom, raise your virtual hand. I am not seeing anybody looking to be recognized.
Okay, I will bring it back to the board for questions. Mr. Grandy.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just have one question. I notice in the recommendation from the fire chief, Chief Foley, to put in a residential fire protection sprinkler system. Is that the intent?
So we have made the architects aware, and Ms. Paquette also has an attorney. We made them aware of that, you know, verbiage being worded as a recommendation. My understanding, it's a building code issue that will be dealt, you know, if we get approval from the ZBA and it moves forward to the building permit process. It would be our preference not to, because of the, you know, pretty substantial additional cost. And the fact that, you know, the current structure doesn't have that. I think, you know, we could potentially be looking at running new water infrastructure, a long distance, a much bigger pipe. But, you know, that, I think that will be in accordance with the building code and the laws that pertains to that, how that gets handled.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping you would take that recommendation pretty seriously from the fire chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. Mr. Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you orient me a little bit about this? I drove down to that area, and Avenue B is an interesting road to drive down. Are we talking about the direct end of the road before it makes that sharp right?
Correct.
Is
The
that where
sharp,
it
the
is?
sharp right comes around this corner, and then it
Okay.
kind of dead ends back here. It actually
Okay.
used to be connected to Avenue A, even beyond that. So there was access at one point in time through Avenue A this way, but now Avenue B works its way down to Taylor Ave.
And in the back, where the wetlands is, I mean, it continues, it's in the middle and in the back. What is back there? Are we working our way toward Bartlett Pond back there, or what's, you know, it's hard to orient yourself back there.
St. Catherine's Park.
St. Catherine's Park.
So I think
Oh,
what would
okay.
help is if PAC TV allows me to show my screen. And, well, if Lauren lets me have access to share my screen.
One moment. You should have access.
You're still restricted. Is that maybe, no? It is not letting me do that.
For now.
It's okay, Lee. Now that
So
they
it
mentioned
backs up to the,
to St. Catherine's.
St.
there.
Catherine's,
Yeah,
yeah.
now that puts it in, now I can understand it and visualize it. Okay, and then that makes sense too, going back there to a piece of open space there. It's good that you're doing what you're doing. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Donaldson?
I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions, a few comments. I am pleased to see that we're removing the cesspool from the wetlands, though that's not really in the planning board's purview. That's more the purview of the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health. So I appreciate seeing a nice new modern septic system out there rather than a couple of cesspools. And I also appreciate your due diligence in getting the letters of support from your neighbors. That will serve you well, especially that there were so many and that there were none in opposition. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of this project.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Could you explain what it means to have a replication area for the wetlands? Are you going to regrade it, or?
Yes, so we worked with Brad Holmes. He's a professional wetland scientist during the conservation process. And conservation has their certain jurisdictional buffer zones, the 35-foot, which they deem the no-touch, 50 no-build. And with that wetland that's grown over the past 3 years, which can be attributed to, you know, the ongoing development drainage problem, they were pretty dead set on wanting us to at least maintain a 35-foot setback. And there's just no horizontal room. So at an on-site meeting with staff and a few members of the commission and Brad Holmes, we came up with a plan and said, if we fill in a small portion of this wetland, which has only been created in the past few years, let's find other places to replicate. So dig out, put in the soil material and the wetland species. There'll be a good amount of wetland species planted to recreate an actual wetland. So the area that's being removed at a 1.5, times amount will replicate it in the rear of the property. And that'll just, confine it better, give them a little better buffer to their house. It's kind of a mosquito breeding ground right there. And also, in better the habitat and the value of the wetland.
Oh, I appreciate that you're going to do the grading, but also replanting with,
Oh, yes,
with the
absolutely.
material.
Yep, and conservation has approved all that.
And how is parking handled?
So currently, I believe, park on that side. So currently, if you're looking at it, they park on the right. We originally looked at locating the septic system on the left side. During our soil and percolation testing, we found that groundwater is extremely high in this area. And this side is actually a little up gradient from this side. So really, we looked at this every which way. The only way to make a septic system compliant on this lot, and you can see it's pretty big, the material wasn't great, it didn't perk great, we had to put it over on this side, and this technology can't be driven over. So now we're going to shift the parking area to this side. The intent is to just kind of keep it a, natural lawn parking area like it exists today. That was the Conservation Commission's preference. They do easily have the ability to fit 2-3 cars. That was an engineering comment that, we'll be showing on the new version of the plan that, cars can fit within the property limits.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other comment is that there are a lot of comments that have come from the town, and appreciate that you're going to be taking care of those.
Yep, thank you.
Very good. I have no further questions, so are there any further discussions from members of the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, recommend approval.
I have a motion from Mr. Bennett to recommend approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Donaldson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll for a vote. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Mand?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening, we have a public hearing. So I will first read the required public notice.
No, we still have
Nope, we still have...
one more case.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely correct. My apologies. We'll go with that. Next on our agenda, ZBA 4180, 9 Samoset Ave, Zohib Saeed. Good evening.
So I'm trying to over there pull the permit and then for special permit. So I want I'm trying to make over there 1-bedroom apartment. So when we bought that the building, so it's mostly stuff is done already in there. So I just changed that septic a couple weeks ago. So it's been not used at the space, so I'm trying to use that as the space for 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it to staff.
So this came and was a case that started to come before staff and the board several months ago. And when we looked into it, we weren't clear what the situation was with the Title V septic system and what was there. So we told the applicant that they needed to go back, work with the Board of Health, and before they came back to the ZBA, to make sure that they had those issues resolved. What they're looking for and what they're requesting, so this is all in a residential zone. It's pre-existing non-conforming commercial use that's on the street. You have a convenience store, and the second is an antique store.
Yes.
An antique store and 2 attached buildings. In the rear, there's a second building that has a apartment in it, and storage on the first level. And what they're looking to do is a special permit to alter a nonconformity to add 1 additional 1-bedroom unit to the makeup here in existing space, no additional construction on the site. So our big concern was Title V, and they've now gone through and satisfied with the Board of Health, and we've gone and actually confirmed with the Board of Health that they're comfortable with this, it will meet their requirements. So it's an addition of an expansion of a nonconformity by adding 1 bedroom within existing space in the building.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to be heard on this matter in the room? Seeing no one, is there anyone on Zoom wishing to be heard on this matter?
If you'd like to be heard on this matter, raise your virtual hand. Not seeing anyone.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions, see if anybody has any questions for you. Start with you, Mr. Smith.
I have no questions.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Mand? Your microphone is not on.
Mr. Hartman, I was a little confused by the proposal. And, you know, we have commercial property, we have residential property divided on the lot. We have a parking lot that is, it's confusing as to who parks where and where one thing begins and another ends. There's several buildings on there, but this is only to decide one additional space in the building that has the garage in it and a second floor apartment. Is that right?
Correct.
And there's no other, I mean, what I'd like to see is this kind of straightened out back there. It's kind of a mess, but we have no say in.
Oh, you certainly do. And I think if you want to, again, this is advisory, but I think you could give some direction to the zoning board that you think, and again, give me some direction for what you'd like to explain, but I think we could ask them if it's striping, if it's better marking, removal of anything, whatever it is you think you'd like to do. You can certainly, you have that, the board has that purview to make those types of recommendations for improvements to the site.
So what I would like to see is a combination of striping, new curbs and things like that, that would allow for a more sensible use of the property. You know, there are 2 or 3 entrances to 2 or 3 entities there, and it's not at all clear who goes where at what time. I think it's, you know, there's also a road that comes in off the northern side that goes back to residential property, and then there's a road to an access to the southern end that comes into next to the antique store, and then there's parking in between. So if there could be some kind of clarity that could come out of that through striping or other means, that would make for a safer and I think a more pleasing design back there. I think the whole neighborhood would benefit, as well as I think the businesses and other people would as well. I don't know how specific I can be because I was not sure exactly what was really being asked for until your clarity.
Can I answer this question?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, good evening. We will make we will put the strips on it, make a one-way coming in from the state road and exiting. All the cars will have an exit to Somerset Avenue. So that way it won't be a problem or anything else. We put stripes on it. You know, that's what we're planning to do that. And park the cars facing the building in the back. I'm talking about rear apartment. So we put stripes over there too. So we'll make arrow signs on the ground, so everybody knows where they have to come this way and they have to get out on Somerset Avenue. So that way there won't be any misunderstanding.
So would you then go to the ZBA after this with a more specific plan that details these things?
Yeah, we will. I mean, they already suggest us, but we were waiting to hear from you guys, so we'll definitely do it, yeah.
So my recommendation would
Yeah.
be that you provide those additional
Yeah.
details and striping and things like that
Yeah,
to
we
the
will.
satisfaction of the zoning board.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mand. Mr. Donaldson?
Yeah, I just have a concern. Is there, in regards to the parking as well for this one bedroom, is where, and also the usage. So is this rental property, or someone, family members gonna be living there, or just out of curiosity, in regards to
No, it's
the
a family member, not the rental.
all right, and no Airbnb?
No.
All right.
No.
And then the parking for that, is that under will be the garage that's under the apartment, or is it somewhere else on the property?
Say again?
Under the apartment.
Under the park.
Under the apartment.
Okay.
Nobody-
All right, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently on site there now, are there bollards? This plan is really not too illustrative. You have a concrete walkway on the left-hand side of the Manamet General Store. and you have the handicap spot and striped out for unloading out of a handicap vehicle. Is there bollards currently to protect anybody from driving into the building?
Yeah, there's.
There is? I don't see it.
Poles are,
Yeah, poles are, yeah.
poles are in front of
You
the
know what a
store.
bollard is,
On the
right?
sides of the store. like-
Painted yellow?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't see them marked on the plan, so you should probably have those
yeah. Okay.
marked on your site plan. What about any type of landscaping improvements at all? I just see by the shed, it says grass. And I would see a planter down the southern portion of the fresh picked antique shop. So are we going to do any augmenting of any landscaping?
This is it so far we have, and we do your landscaping by self, mow the lawn and stuff.
Right, so what's in the planter now? Is the planter that's on the plan? What is in the planter currently? It's just a
We-
question.
We doing it by self.
Right, so is there shrubs, flowering shrubs in there? Is there something growing in the planter
No.
itself?
No, no, no.
Currently, it's just labeled as a planter.
Yeah, just laying the plant, yeah.
Right, so I would suggest you put together some type of
Okay.
little bit of a landscape plan. You can show the zoning board of appeals, you're going to augment and improve the appearance of not only the building area, but someone's going to be living there and now too also, right?
Yeah.
So where is I know we're not building a new building here, but where is the trash and dumpster currently?
It's behind the store
Just
building.
behind the store.
Store building.
It's behind the general store?
Yes.
In that little corner there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Again, it's not marked as trash container or a dumpster area. Should probably mark the plan a little better for the zoning board of appeals, so they know where your trash area is, for your business. So, again, the members that spoke before me, I agree with their comments also. And currently, that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to, well, first, let me just sort of pile on with Mr. Grandy's comments. I'm looking at street view. I'm looking at the back of the building, and so your dumpster is visible from anybody driving down Samoset. Is that correct?
Excuse me? wait a minute.
So the dumpster is basically just behind the building on the side of the road of Samoset?
Yeah, it's right
Yeah.
behind the building.
Behind
Yeah.
the building, yeah.
So I would certainly prefer to have see that screened from public view. Any modern site plan requires dumpsters to be screened from public view. It just, it's not a pleasant view from those residents who drive out Samoset along there to see. Looks like a dumpster and then a fenced-in or caged area. Is that maybe a refrigeration unit or something like that in the back there?
That's the another side for visitor.
There's in a corner, yeah, but it's all fence around it.
Okay, and I see this, speaking of bollards, I see bollards on what would be the left side of the building if you're looking at it from the front. They're leaning against the building. I think you have maybe you might want to repair, straighten them up, just kind of, I mean, I'll be blunt, I think that the site is rather dumpy looking. And I think you really have an opportunity here where you're going to be, hopefully for your benefit, developing some additional income from the site with the additional dwelling unit to maybe make some improvements, make it a little bit more of a contribution to the neighborhood rather than an eyesore.
All right.
I think that the engineering comments, one of them is that your site plan doesn't show where the septic system is. It just shows a septic tank. So I think that engineering comment should be addressed, that the entirety of the septic system should be shown. And also the other engineering comment is the number 5, that a new plan of land should be prepared to define where these property lines actually are legally, because based on your site plan there, one line along Samoset Avenue goes east to the beginning, which is not very meaningful and not very reproducible mathematically. So I would recommend that you speak to your engineer about preparing a recordable plan that shows where the boundaries of this lot actually are legally, rather than the reliance on a plan from, I didn't catch what the age of it is, but it's a plan from a long, long time ago. So those are my comments. I think the site in general needs to be tidied up and made a little bit less, or a little bit more appealing to the eye.
All right. Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further comments. My fellow board members have addressed all of those issues. So with that in mind, do I have a motion? Oh, sorry. Mr. Grandy, please go ahead.
Probably, Mr. Bennett, do you still have the street view there? What does this fence look like along Westerly to State Highway? It says fence. Is it already there?
I'm not sure that we're allowed to rely
I
on
know
street
that.
view because I have no idea how old
It
that
says
is.
fence. Is the fence existing or is that proposed? Sir,
Excuse me?
the fence that's along
Yeah,
Westerly to State Highway, and then it heads back up towards Samoset on the plan, and then it comes down, turns, and is supposed to return to the accessory building.
yeah.
Is there a fence there now?
No, actually, that's the next.
One side has fence, one doesn't have it. We can put it up. If you recommend, then we'll put that fence up.
Okay, so there's no fence there currently yet, right?
Yes.
Okay, you might want to show the height
On
and style of the fence to
Samoset
the
side, there's
zoning
no
board.
fence on Samoset side.
You might want to show something as far as detail goes on what type of fence that you are going to install when you go to the zoning board of appeals. All right?
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Mr. Grandy. Anything further from members of the board? Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Lee, could you read back some of the suggestions that were made by the members, please, for recommendations to the zoning board of appeals? Through the chair,
Yep.
obviously.
Hold on, I'm just going to finish this last one. So one would be to install a new fencing along the abutting residential, or along the southern property line abutting the residential dwelling next door. Striping for drive lanes, parking spaces, delineate entrances with curbing, site directional signage, bollards in front of the building should be shown on the plan, bollards that are in need of repair should be repaired, augment the site with additional landscaping, locate the dumpster area on the plan with screening with a decorative fence.
So do I have a motion to recommend with those recommendations from the planning board?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Mann. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Grandy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Thank you.
So good luck in front of the zoning board. Please
Thank you
make,
very much.
we make these recommendations seriously because we know the zoning board
All right.
likes these things.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, since I jumped the gun last time, next on our agenda, we have a public hearing. So I will read what is a relatively lengthy public hearing notice. Sorry, sort of required by statute. The Planning Board will hold a public hearing in the 1820 Courtroom, Town Hall, 26 Court Street, Plymouth, Massachusetts, on Wednesday, September 10, 2025, at 7 p.m. to see if the town will vote to amend the Plymouth zoning bylaw, Section 203-2C, by adding a new subsection, 20C-2C13, temporary moratorium on the issuance of zoning permits and special permits for earth removal that provides as follows. 13, temporary moratorium on the issuance of zoning permits and special permits for earth removal. A, purpose. The magnitude and impacts of current earth removal practice appear to have damaged natural systems and been harmful to the neighborhoods near the sites. Such activities, should be the sites of such activities, due to excessive noise and air pollution and the effects of heavy truck traffic to and from such sites remaining in effect over time periods exceeding months or years. The purpose of the temporary moratorium is to allow sufficient time for the town to engage in a planning process to review and evaluate the effectiveness of the earth removal regulations of Section 203-2C and to determine whether such regulation is implemented and administered in a manner consistent with the expressed intent of such regulation. B, moratorium. For the reasons set forth above and notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning bylaw to the contrary, and except for earth removal operations described in subsection 203-2C2, A through F, no zoning permit or special permit may be issued for earth removal under section 203-2C, and this temporary moratorium shall take effect as of the date of the adoption of this article by town meeting and shall continue until that which is 11 and a half months after the date such moratorium takes effect. Text and other information may be inspected at the Department of Planning and Development. Any person interested and desired to be heard on this request should appear at the time and place designated.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Mand.
I wish to read a statement about my recusing myself.
Okay, Mr. Mand, please go ahead.
Because I participated in the discussion that led to the submission of the citizen petition that the board will now review, I consulted with the State Ethics Commission regarding any potential conflict of interest. After speaking with the state attorney, I concluded I did not have any personal conflicts that would in most instances prevent me from expressing my personal viewpoint on this matter. However, I was advised that as a member of the planning board and when the board makes a recommendation on this petitioned article, that in this one particular instance, my vote could appear to be biased. Therefore, to avoid the appearance of bias, I will recuse myself from participation in the discussion and the vote on Article 25. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mand. So we're first going to hear a presentation on this matter, after which we will get staff recommendations. We will then open this up for public comment. Public comment will be per the town adopted planning board public comment policy, which is 3 minutes per person. After which questions will come then from the planning board for the petitioner. Once we close public comment, I'm just going to remind people that means that public comment is closed. We don't hear further from the public after that. That's the planning board's time to do its investigation. So hopefully we'll be able to get through a very good presentation. And please, the presenters, come forward.
Hello, Chairman, and we three are representing the Plymouth Stewardship Alliance, and we will give the presentation in parts. We've divided it up some, and then we'll all be available to answer any questions that you may have. My name is Peter Schwartzman. I'm a member of the Stewardship Alliance, and I'm a founding board member of the Savory Pond Conservancy. I'm also a licensed professional groundwater hydrogeologist. And our intent here is to educate the board about our proposal and to answer any questions that you may have. I want to note that we did give a public presentation at the library last weekend, and we are aware of some of the town's concerns that we've heard. So we're also ready to answer some of those as you bring them up. So to start the presentation, I want to just say a little bit about who we are. We're a network of Plymouth residents with many years of experience in environmental science and policy and advocacy. We come from local nonprofits, there's town committee members and engaged residents. And our mission is to engage both the public and local government to protect our land, water, and air, to ensure a healthy, livable community for all. And one of our main beliefs is that economic development and environmental stewardship can go hand in hand. And that's what we hope to bring to in the efforts that we put forward. I am going to turn it over to Lev Albrecht, who will talk a bit about the sand mining problem. And you can just use this to do the slides if you want, or do you want me to do it?
You can go ahead and do it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. Wake everyone up. The sand mining problem. Plymouth sits in the northern edge of the Atlantic coastal pine barrens. One of the defining characteristics of this ecoregion is that we sit on a critical commodity, SiO2, silica dioxide, silica sand, valuable silica sand. In recent years, the value of quality silica sand has increased dramatically, and the sand here in Plymouth is exceptional. It can be more than 97% pure. The value has increased so much that mining the sand is often more valuable than developing these sites. And as sand is mined, it's causing environmental destruction. Our neighborhoods suffer noise and dust and relentless truck traffic, and often these projects span years of continued mining and hauling. This isn't just happening at one or two sites, it's happening throughout Plymouth. Sadly, our current earth removal regulations are not sufficient to stop the destruction, so those who seek to mine sand for profit leverage this. We understand that building and farming require site excavation and grading. We have no issue with that. But commercial sand mining rips away huge areas of our protective layer of trees, vegetation, and topsoil, and it permanently scars the landscape. What we destroy and take away, we cannot put back. The noise and truck traffic from large-scale sand mining is relentless. First there's logging and stripping the vegetation and topsoils, then they mine. Loaders running 10 to 12 hours a day, hauling truck acceleration and deceleration noise, screeching jake braking, increased traffic, and more wear and damage to our roadways, all part and parcel of sand mining. And I know of what I speak. We live in the 700 block of Long Pond Road, and the PA Landers and SLT trucks start at 7 in the morning and they run till 7 at night, sometimes every 30 seconds. Sand and mining operations strip mine. This obliterates habitats, destroys globally rare pine barrens, forests, and biodiversity, alters drainage patterns, can change the hydrology of our groundwater, and creates deserts where there was once tremendous life. Sand mining puts microscopic SiO2, silica dioxide, into the air, which can waft for miles, exposing us to serious health hazards. We easily inhale the particulates, which can exacerbate respiratory issues like asthma, emphysema, and COPD. But of highest concern, silica dioxide is carcinogenic and has been linked to silicosis, kidney disease, and lung cancer. Sand is the #2 commodity extracted from the ground in the world. It is second only to water. The United Nations Environment Program recently launched the Global Sand Observatory Initiative, calling sand extraction a silent environmental crisis due to the widespread and often permanent destruction it causes. As mining strips mature vegetation and critical bioactive topsoils, this removes the protective buffer and leaves us exposed to the full force of extreme weather events and destroys ecosystems that otherwise would naturally adapt to our impending climate crisis. Besides logging and stripping, excessive truck noise and the visual assault from these devastated areas, residents are exposed to air pollution from wafting sand and diesel emissions. Neighborhoods are split and degraded, and what were once pleasant areas around us are destroyed, often permanently. Sand mining removes the vegetation, soils, and critical active microbial skin that naturally filter and protect the Plymouth Carver sole source aquifer. These protect our groundwater, and removing them permanently eliminates this protective barrier, exposing the aquifer to pollutants like nitrogen, diesel fuel, and hydraulic fluids. Best practices in our own regulations require that mining go no deeper than 10 feet above groundwater to maintain some filtration yet large-scale mining often digs into the aquifer, a direct violation. Why do this? To mine more sand. So we took a look at a very conservative estimate of what has been mined here in Plymouth. We have data that supports that over 20 million cubic yards have been mined. Some experts say as much as 60 to 100 million have been mined since the early 2000s. To give an appreciation for how much sand this is, we want you to imagine yourselves at North Plymouth High School, standing in the middle of the Mario Romano football field, and imagine a pile of sand on top of that that goes in excess of 2 miles high. That's almost twice the height of Mount Washington, which is the highest point in New England. That's what 20 million cubic yards look like. So where is this happening? It's not isolated, it's all over Plymouth. This map shows 43 sites for which we have data. Each dot represents a site where 50,000 cubic yards or more of sand was removed and sold. And that's equivalent to 2,500 18-wheeler loads, times 2, back and forth. Here's a site that we're all familiar with. 71 Hedges Pond Road in South Plymouth is a 42-acre former conservation parcel, the Cedarville Conservation Area. Unfortunately, this parcel was sold and allowed to be strip mined. In January, this was a forested hill. They started mining this past winter, and that former hill is now a canyon and continues to be actively mined. So why would they do this? To mine more sand. This strip mining was allowed based on concepts for a small industrial park, but the owner of the property is still actively mining the sand, and he also has the property up for sale. Apparently, there is no longer intention to build the proposed industrial park. At the other end of town, there's 10 Collins Avenue. Anyone who drives Route 3 in Plymouth cannot help but see and be horrified by this 20-acre open pit that has been sand mined for the past several years. Ignoring regulations, they mine deeper than allowed and cut into the aquifer. Again, why? This was to mine more sand. They did not excavate using best practices and stay away from the property margins, particularly critical when the substrate left is silica sand that doesn't hold slopes. It's also called sugar sand because it pours just like sugar. Some slopes that remain around the perimeter of 10 Collins are steeper than what our regulations allow. Why? This was to mine more sand. The approvals to move forward on the site required tree planting on the Route 3 edge to soften the views to the destruction from the highway, but the excavation didn't leave enough soil at the property margin to plant the trees. Why? Say it with me, to mine more sand. And our regulations require that the site be hydroseeded, mulched, watered, or otherwise stabilized to minimize erosion and to prevent plumes of air-wafted sand. Active mining was completed last year. To date, here we are in September, and nothing has been done to stabilize the site. So what kind of money are we talking? We're going to give you a conservative look. We've heard that the average sale price of wholesale mined silica sand is between $14 and $18 per cubic yard. We're going to use 10. At $10 per cubic yard net to excavate, transport, and sell this valuable silica sand, these 570,000 estimated cubic yards mined is worth $5.7 million. Sand mining is driven by greed. Greed for the spectacular revenues possible from the sale of mined sand in Plymouth. I'd like to call up and introduce my colleague, Nancy Mukundan.
Good evening. So, if the problem is that big developers are finding their way through loopholes in our current zoning bylaws, how do we find a solution to that problem? The Plymouth Stewardship Alliance's answer to that question is our citizens' petition coming before Plymouth's Fall Town Meeting. Article 25 uses a two-pronged approach. First, we propose a temporary moratorium on issuing the zoning permits and special permits required for large-scale earth removal. Second, a sand and gravel committee is needed to review and rewrite the earth removal town bylaws so that exploitative sand mining projects cannot proceed. The committee should consider the best practices of the planning department in their review. Ideally, the committee will work quickly and bring the improved bylaws to the next town meeting for approval. This article would prevent new permits on large earth removal projects. Those projects already permitted would proceed with no effect. Also, the current bylaw exempts small projects such as single-family homes, landscaping, and even cranberry agriculture from the permit requirement, so those projects would continue to be allowed. The moratorium would last for the maximum allowable period under state law, 11.5 months. It's worth pointing out that these restrictions would be on earth removal only. Excavation and grading, but keeping the earth on site, would not be affected by our moratorium. The current bylaws specifically list the amount of earth removal that can happen with each type of small-scale project without requiring a permit. Our warrant article doesn't change any of that, so septic system installations would still be allowed, landscaping with removal of up to 100 cubic yards per year, residential dwellings up to 200 cubic yards. Next. Multifamily residential, commercial, and industrial up to 1,000 cubic yards. General agriculture up to 2,500, and cranberry agriculture up to 50,000 cubic yards. Our article does not change these limits that are currently written into the bylaw, but the proposed Sand and Gravel Committee, we expect, will revisit these limits if they are not currently adequate. Okay. Our intent is that the moratorium would affect those commercial developers whose interest is merely to strip sand and then sell out. But all larger scale developers, even those who actually intend to build something, would no longer be incentivized by the high price of sand to dig deep, featureless pits. The result, which keeps the earth on site, could actually be the retention of a lovelier, more natural, more vegetated, healthier topography, even in Plymouth's developed areas. By removing the cash incentive for excessive excavation, the moratorium would push developers to work more in alignment with the rest of the community and help create a more livable Plymouth for all. So the second prong of Article 25 is to form a sand and gravel committee to look closely at this and rewrite the bylaws. Our hope is that the committee will be diverse and balanced with representatives who have expertise, knowledge, and a commitment to listening to the Plymouth community. The committee must start working quickly so that new bylaws can be presented in a timely manner to a future town meeting, ideally in spring of 2026. So our ask tonight is for your recommendation to support our article. We will be promoting Article 25 to the citizens of Plymouth, to town meeting members before next month's town meeting. Our hope is that after your careful consideration of the problem of sand mining in Plymouth, the planning board will make a recommendation to support warrant Article 25. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it first to staff, and then we'll open it up to public comment.
Thank you. So I know that this article is being filed with the best of intentions, but I want to point out that there are many unintended consequences that are in this proposal. I'm going to just highlight a few. There are a number that I think are a concern, but I'm going to highlight just the ones that I think are the most concerning. So what this bylaw does is it seeks to limit to approximately a year any earth removal that requires a zoning permit. A zoning permit is something you file. It's a simple one-page filing. You do it for a shed, you do it for a pool, you do it for any kind of use you have. So that zoning permit is the first review that the building department has to look at compliance with zoning. And it's required for any project that occurs in town. The way this is written is it says that if you have 100 cubic yards of gravel being removed or earth being removed that's associated with landscaping or gardening on a property, that's prohibited. When we look at that and figure out what that is, that's a 15 by 30 in-ground pool. At this town meeting, there's a proposal to do repair work to the Morton Park culvert. Then that exceeds that 100 cubic yards. That Morton Park culvert repair work would be prohibited for a year. The other concern I have is for some unintended consequences, such as if we had a 21E site and an oil spill where you have 150 cubic yards of contaminated soil that would need to be removed. This would prohibit that. I'm not even sure how we would deal with the nightmare of a prohibition on removing soil that has problems with it that we're not allowed to remove. And again, the problem with this is that it's absolute. There's no discretion the way this is worded. 200 cubic yards for a single-family home. That's a 20 by 30 footprint of a house, 1,200 square feet. Again, if it's over that, then it's prohibited. 1,000 square feet, 1,000 cubic yards, I'm sorry, is prohibited for residential, multifamily, commercial, and industrial. That's a 50 by 50 building. Wood Seafood, the Manomet self-service, although that doesn't have a basement, but the Manomet self-service car wash in downtown Manomet, and the old Friendlies, which is now La Bamba on the corner of Market Street. Those are all 50 by 50 buildings. So anything larger than that will be prohibited. And then the 2,500 cubic yards of gravel associated with agriculture. I'm not even going to get into the agricultural issue. Agriculture is exempt, and I'm very concerned about what would happen if we are denying agricultural uses, non-cranberry uses, the right to do what they want to do by this moratorium. It could lead to some legal issues with that. The ironic thing, and it was stated by the proponents, is that you can stockpile. So if you have a small lot and you want to do a pool, you could stockpile your material on your property, front yard, backyard, and sit there for up to a year, and then once that is up, you could move it off-site. So there could be stockpiling for building of houses, building of pools, other landscaping work, commercial development. I'm not sure. I believe having a stockpile of material on a property might be more damaging than not. Some of the proponents have talked to me about this, and the proponents have said that the building commissioner has some discretion. That's not so absolute. I have talked to town council, I've talked to the building commissioner, and they both agree this moratorium is absolute, and there is no discretion involved. If it exceeds those numbers, then the answer is no. The petition also seeks to request a planning process and create some kind of committee to go through a planning process. But there's no funding available for that process. And they even mentioned how staff could be part of the process to work. I think to do this right, we need professional engineers, hydrologists, and soil scientists and attorneys on a team that can assist the town. So in lieu of what they're proposing and having us argue through town meeting about the merits of this proposal for absolute moratorium, I have mentioned to several of these people that we would be willing to go through a process where we would talk to consulting engineers, Horsley and Witten, Stantec, any others that they have an idea of would be good. I would work with them and ask them to give me a scope of services of what would be involved to do a thorough review of our bylaw and the science, and have attorneys also involved in that throughout the whole process. Get a cost estimate for what that would cost, and in April, go to town meeting to seek the necessary funding to hire those experts. And also in April, to be creating a committee to work through this process with professionals, not just simply volunteers and town staff. Our staff is not qualified to make those types of determinations. The other comment that was made about coming through and hopefully being ready for Springtown meeting. To be ready for Springtown meeting, we, the planning board, would have to be holding public hearings on modifications to this bylaw. You would have to hold them in November, maybe early December. So it's almost impossible that if this moratorium happened, that we would have anything ready for April town meeting, because, again, to be ready for April town meeting, your work of reviewing those things, the committee's work and your work would have to be done by December. An impossibly tight timeline to put a committee together to do any kind of review and have anything ready for April town meeting. And again, when I have offered this to get professional help, and I'm sure if we go to town meeting, whether it was Holtec, whether it's the master plan, town meeting's been willing to support these planning efforts to go in and get the necessary funding to do this right. And again, I would envision this to be more like a 2-year process to do it right. The group has said they're not interested, and I'm at a complete loss to try to understand why the people I talked to said that they're not interested in actually doing this in a manner that makes more sense, which is hiring the professionals that we need, having a committee created that can work with those professionals. So again, if this was adopted, there's a wide range of residential, commercial, and industrial uses that will be prohibited or forced to do some kind of temporary storage on their property. New homes and new businesses will be affected. Large-scale home improvements, such as installing an in-ground pool, would be prohibited for that year. And there is, the denial is absolute. There's no discretion. The other concern I have is that we have an MBTA law. Although I don't think we're going to see any residential multifamily development as a result of the town's MBTA zoning, I believe that a moratorium like this, the state will find us not in compliance with the MBTA law for that year. And so although that's not going to have an impact on any development of multifamily, for that 1 year, we will not be eligible for grants because we will not comply with the MBTA law. This proposal will make multifamily development a prohibited use because any multifamily will exceed those numbers. Unless it's a 50 by 50, something the size of Woods multifamily development, anything else would be prohibited. And again, I think that will run afoul of the state and the MBTA community law. And again, this article has no funding associated with it. So the challenge I have is to do this right. We want the professionals we need to do it right. And this article does not allow that. So in closing, I would say this is going to just place an undue hardship on homeowners looking to improve their property, on business owners who are looking to expand or locate in the town of Plymouth, unless it's something less than a 50 by 50 building, and it's likely to cause a considerable amount of litigation as we go through and try to impose an absolute ban with no discretion. So I would ask that you not support this, and again, I would hope that the people who are interested in this item would also agree to put this aside, work with us, and work on a proper process, which would be to hire the necessary professionals and do this with that type of support to do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. A couple of quick questions for you first. So the town redid this bylaw. When was the last time the town redid this bylaw?
It was a 2-year process, and we presented that at 2017 to town meeting.
And it took effect in 2018, correct?
2017.
2017, okay. Thank you.
I would also point out that many of the things that we identified in this current bylaw, the Attorney General and their decision allowing our approval, is just laced with cautions about the agricultural exemption, in particular as it relates even to cranberry bog. So we're already, I don't want to say on notice, but the Attorney General, when they approved our current bylaw, cautioned us about those exempt uses and the implications of this type of bylaw against uses that are not subject to zoning. Just another concern I have when we look at this type of moratorium.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. So at this point, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the room wishing to be heard? Seeing no one, we'll ask if there's anyone online. I do see at least one hand.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you. Michelle Christensen. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 9. That's down in the south of Plymouth. I thank the team for putting together a nice presentation, and I also appreciate Mr. Hartman's feedback and updates around that. I was happy to hear that Mr. Hartman had verbally come forward with some suggestions and some ideas on how the town could move forward. Because the reason that I think you're seeing a citizen's petition, an observation that I get from many of my constituents, they consistently, any meeting I'm going to these days, irrelevant of which steering committee, which conservation meeting, watershed meeting, and every one of the constituents are asking, what are you doing about sand mining? It is just the first thing that comes out of their mouth, even though we have other things on the agenda. So unfortunately, I think what you're seeing is the residents, the constituents, losing patience and wanting to know what is the town going to do. And as a result, you now get a moratorium request, this article. And I'd like to ask Mr. Or the town, Mr. Hartman in particular, and his ideas is come back with a counter proposal. Come back and tell us what it needs to be. You verbally did that. Well, come back and what should we be doing? That's the one question. The second one I would like to see is that the planning board stand up and say that they are in support, working together with the select board, for example, to come forward with the previously disbanded Sand and Gravel Excavation Committee, Advisory Committee. Would you support that, bringing that forward and getting that committee back in place and make it that diverse committee where they then could come and support that counter proposal? The town is asking for results. They're asking to see something happen. And I think that that is one way that stepping forward and doing that would help in this situation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online wishing to be heard?
So just if I could respond to that, I think I've made it clear. I think my recommendation is to do this with professional consultants and a team, do it with a committee appointed by the select board, planning board, but do it with professionals that will work with that committee, just like we do with the master plan. We have a set of professionals who work with that committee. That's my recommendation. We don't have that kind of funding in our department now. We would have to seek that money. The earliest we can do that is April town meeting. So that's that would be my recommendation. And again, not mine to say what we should do to the bylaw, but let's use some experts and science to actually come up with those answers.
Okay. I think just so there's some clarification, because there's a question about what has happened here. So the planning board is prepared, has been prepared for a while, and is prepared, was planning on presenting a guidance to the building commissioner, which would create a financial disincentive to those undertaking large-scale sand excavation. That was something we were waiting for the fall to go through, rather than do it in the summer when nobody was around and we don't get people coming here. So we were waiting for the fall to do that. That had been announced. We have worked with the building commissioner and have something that the building commissioner is comfortable with. But obviously that's now been supplanted because we're waiting to deal with this. In the interim, we've always said that we're willing to look again at the bylaw, but the bylaw is a complicated thing to do. As Mr. Hartman mentioned, the last time we looked at this, 2015 through 2017, was a 2-year process with 23 separate meetings. That was done without the help of a consultant. And as a result, we ended up with the most stringent bylaw that we could put in place at that time, with many, many warnings from the Attorney General's office. So we're more than happy to continue to look forward to this and to see if there's still more that can be done. But when that was presented to individuals who stated that they represented the Plymouth Stewardship Alliance, we were first told, well, I'll have to bring that back to somebody. And then we heard nothing back until ultimately we received an email from Mr. Mand, who has recused himself in this matter, saying that, speaking seemingly on behalf of the Alliance, saying, that doesn't do what we want, so we're not going to listen to that, and we're not going to go forward with that. But if you want to come and talk to us at some point, we'll listen to you. And we'll give you a date at the end of September. So the town has put out the olive branch on a couple of occasions now. We've had meetings with members of the Stewardship Alliance. Mr. Stone, who is online, was in attendance at one of those. along with Mr. Deslogis and Mr. Peck, who was here earlier. So we've met with people, we've talked with them, we've raised the concerns, we've discussed the alternative that we think is the best way to go. And Mr. Hartman has made the statement, a somewhat exasperated one, which is he can't understand why it is we're being rejected and rebuffed. And I understand that frustration, because in order to do this right, it has to be done professionally, because otherwise we will end up with nothing but an unenforceable wish list that is neither acceptable to the state, legal, or supported by any scientific basis. And we have people here who are presenting who clearly are scientists. I know you're scientists. I know we have a hydrologist. I know we have a chemist. So I know we have people who understand the necessity of presenting supported scientific evidence if you actually expect the state to agree with us. And that's what we're proposing, and yet somehow that seems to be falling on deaf ears. So unfortunately, this seems to be the first time publicly that we're able to say this, but let's make it clear. That offer is out there. I, as the chair of this board, will support that effort.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are we closing public?
We will do that. I'll finish this comment and then we can do a motion. Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. So just to be clear, I, as the chair of this board, will personally, and I can't speak on behalf of the rest of the board, but I assume that the rest of the board will agree to advance Mr. Hartman's proposal, to work on it, and to create whatever committee makes the most sense, working with the Select Board, the Conservation Commission, the ZBA, and any other body, to make sure that we have a broad range of voices and views in compliance with the will of the people in the master plan. And I have spent the last 2.5 years doing primarily nothing but listening to the residents regarding their concerns. Every master plan committee meeting for 2.5 years, from the time it was before even the committee, when we were the advisory body. I haven't missed a meeting. I've been at every one, listening to the residents to advance their issues, not mine personally, not anybody else's, not any group, not any special interest, not any business interest, the residents. And I will continue to do that. So I will stand here right now and say, I fully support the efforts proposed by Mr. Hartman to do this, to do it properly, so that we can actually get something done. It is far better to accomplish something than merely shout into the wind.
Just one caveat to that. We are very sad to announce that Colleen Tavakelian is retiring at the end of this week. So one of our primary planners is retiring. We have staff challenges. I think people can see the magnitude of some of the work we have to do every week. We don't have the bandwidth to be doing two different things. One is working with the hours that you have to put in to educate the community about the impacts of this moratorium, as well as working on a separate thing to do something like preparing a budget and a scope of services for an article for town meeting. So for us, it's got to be one or the other. We don't have the resources to do both.
I think that's a concern that should be made clear to everyone, that this is not something that can be put on town staff shoulders. And that's what happens in most instances. Committees get together with the best of intentions, we're all going to work, and then they ask 1,000 questions of staff. Please go research this, please go look into that, please go get us this information. We don't have the bandwidth to do that at this point. Mr. Hartman is absolutely correct. Colleen is going to be a loss to us. Her absence will be felt. We are just getting Ms. Lind back after a brief absence, and welcome again back tonight, Ms. Lind, for your first time in a while. But we are also seeing other medical leaves and retirements coming up. Mr. Hartman's, most notably, toward the end of this year. And that's big shoes to fill. We are going to be short people. We're going to be short people for at least 6 months. So if anyone expects anything to get done, it's going to have to be done with significant outside consultant help. Absent that, it is not going to occur. Wishful thinking is all you will have, because we simply won't have the bodies to do the work. And I want to see something done properly, period. So I'll get off my soapbox for the moment. Are there any other persons wishing to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
You have a hand raised?
Oh, Lauren, you want to say something?
It's just me. Hello, I'm Lauren Lind. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Development, and thank you for the welcome back. I just wanted to reiterate and back up what Mr. Hartman has said, and that it's not that staff is recommending that we don't do this. We're saying let's take the time to do this right, because we don't want to see unintended consequences when we rush into something and do this in a manner that causes potential financial implications for the town. We don't want to slow growth in a manner that would be detrimental to our long-term stability. We see, we've been hearing with the master plan that there are concerns in the community about affordability. And that's more than just people who are looking to relocate. That's people who are here already, who are already seeing tax burdens. As we look at the long-term, projections coming from our master plan consultants, that will be a concern in the next decade, and we don't want to exacerbate that. So what we're saying is let's not rush into this and then see some potential unintended consequences from this. We want to look at this, have the experts on hand who can help us with this and do this the correct way so that it's done correctly the first time and that we're not seeing mishaps that we then again need to go and potentially correct later down the road because we didn't have the correct tools and expertise in place at the time that we needed to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lind. Okay, at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close the public comment.
I have a motion to close the public comment from Mr. Grandy. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Mr. Bennett. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, at this point, public comment is closed. So now it's the board's time to ask some questions of you folks. You've given us a very nice presentation. We appreciate that. I'm sure it's raised some questions in our minds, so let's go to that. I'm going to start with Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the presenters for your presentation. And I have to say I'm confused. Your presentation was very clear that your target, if you will, is large-scale sand mining, if I'm not mistaken. I think you presented some pretty engaging and interesting statements. I would really be much more impressed with scientific facts backed up with references and so on, rather than fancy pictures, but I understand what gets attention and what gets support for something like this. But my confusion is in that if you're going to reduce, and I don't disagree, large-scale sand mining may not be the best thing for the town, especially with, excuse me, the silica, as you mentioned it, which is, I think, a very big concern. The problem I have is that you're going to put a year-long stop on somebody removing 200 cubic yards. That is and I actually did some math before I saw Mr. Hartman's math. So that's a typical excavation for a house is about 8 feet deep. That's a 26 by 26 foot house. That basically eliminates pretty much any house anybody is going to be building anytime soon. And I am loath to prevent anybody from building more housing and allowing our residents, my neighbors, from creating places to live. The next threshold is 1,000 cubic yards incidental construction of multifamily dwellings. So a little bit of math on that, same depth, 8 feet, is a 58 by 58 foot building. That's about as small a commercial or multifamily building as I can't imagine that being economically viable or worth pursuing for a developer. 2,500 yards, I think, was the necessary and incidental to agricultural use. That's same depth, 8 feet, 92 feet by 92 feet. pretty darn small for any kind of agricultural operation. So I think, again, I'm confused. I feel like you've missed your target because it's large-scale sand mining. When we're talking large scale, I'm talking about 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 yards. Those are from your presentation, and I don't disagree with you, are potentially harmful and basically infringing upon the rights of those around them, let's call it, because I do believe in personal private property rights. If you own the land, you have the right to do with it what you please if you don't impinge upon the rights of others. That's pretty basically how our economic system is set up. So I think that I cannot support this as written by any stretch. I'm sorry, and perhaps you can enlighten me, but I don't understand. I think you said one thing in your presentation, but your proposal says something entirely different. Those are my comments.
If you'd like to respond?
Thank you very much. I think there's a gross misconception about what our proposal states. With all due respect to Mr. Hartman, what we hear is that this is going to prevent small-scale development, small quantities of sand and gravel removal, and our warrant article says nothing to that effect. Our warrant article says that the exemptions shall be preserved, the existing exemptions. It does not change. We ask for no change in the way these things are handled. And these things are currently handled in a way that these types of developments actually move forward. If that weren't the case, there would be so many homeowners that would be needing to go for special permits because we hear that these quantities are not enough. You've done your math and you say, you're all saying it's not enough. So where are all these special permits that are coming out for all these not enough homes that are being built? It's not. So we are not saying that anything has to change in current practices. We're saying these are preserved.
So that's completely wrong.
Yeah, I think
Except that you want to stop them for a year, period,
hang on a second.
with no leeway.
Mr. Bennett,
No,
Mr.
preserve
Bennett,
them for a year.
Hold
It's
on.
preserved.
Hold on, sir. Mr. Bennett, hold on. I think that there's a misconception here as to the difference between a zoning permit and a special permit. Mr. Hartman,
Sure.
can you please clarify this?
So again, I think what happens now in most cases is that when a zoning permit is for let's say a 3,000 square foot footprint house, a large house, or a 100,000 square foot office building, the building commissioner is looking at these thresholds and saying what you're doing to build that building is reasonable. And I'm going to issue you your building permit because we'll have reasonable conditions, and that's what the law says now. He can impose reasonable conditions to make sure there are safeguards. So as part of that zoning permit, he's looking at that single-family house. He's looking at that 60 by 50 commercial building, looking at the erosion control, the way they're going to deal with the foundation, and saying reasonable conditions are here for that building. This provision says you no longer have that reasonable discretion, building commissioner. The answer is no. And again, that's not my interpretation, that's town council and the building commissioner's interpretation.
Anything further, Mr. Bennett?
That'll do for now.
Mr. Donaldson?
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you coming before the board and giving us the information that this information that's important that we need. So one of the issues that I saw and it was kind of addressed is, and I agree with Mr. Hartman in regards to legally what cost is this going to bring to the town legally if this type of mandate is proposed for the town. My other concern is, my question is, have there been done any research to see whether or not something like this has worked somewhere else? Maybe somewhere that we can have another study, or some other town has implemented something like this or close to this that we can maybe learn off of. I think it's a good attempt, but it doesn't meet the mark of what needs to be, what's going to be a fit for Plymouth. I'm in total agreement with Mr. Hartman's recommendations. I believe, we need to have data, some physical science, and also legal representation in regards to a matter like this. I'm all for it. I am on board with, whatever. I'm on all board in regards to dealing with the sand mining issue. And let's see, so you said currently there's 43 sites that are throughout the town that are mining, large mining operations, but yet you only mentioned 2. And in regards to one in Cedarville, what information do you have, or how do you know that property is looking to be sold and sold because of the mining? Do you have an answer for that? Because I don't want misinformation out, and I want to make sure if that's true, then I definitely have a problem, an issue with that particular project. But where did that information come from? Where did you get that from?
Pardon me, the question that you're asking is, how do I know that the
Yes.
land is for sale?
Yes.
There's huge signs out in front of it.
Okay. And so, but you're also stating that it's not going to be, they're not going to put what the planning board approved to be put on that site.
We don't know that one way or the other. We simply know that the current owner, who is currently mining the sand, is not going to move forward with his original proposal to build a small industrial park,
And how do we know that?
because he's selling the property.
Okay. That's that's not my understanding of what's happening on that site. And let me see, what else do I have? Do you have my answer to my question in regards to how has a proposal like this worked somewhere else? That you know of, or have you researched that?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Have you researched? Can you hear me?
Not easily, I can't hear you. No, sorry. Yes, actually, Duxbury put in a moratorium this past spring. It went until July when it was relieved. Their process is different from ours. Their earth removal bylaws fall under the direct control of the select board, but the select board and the town director of inspectional services, Jim Wozlowski, who I spoke with several times, they put this moratorium in because the sand mining was getting out of control. And so the select board initiated the moratorium. They took the 5 months that they needed to rework their earth removal bylaws, released the moratorium this summer, and now their new bylaws are in place. Not bylaws, regulations, excuse me.
Also, I just want to point out that the primary goal of this is to change the bylaws. The moratorium is simply a means to pause existing large-scale sand mining practices while the bylaws are being changed. But the goal is to change the bylaws, and there's also nothing in the warrant article that precludes the approach that Mr. Hartman is talking about, getting experts on board. I mean, it's possible that you've spoken to some people and they've said some things, but there's nothing in the actual text that says you cannot have scientists, consultants in this process. And to determine what the process is going to be would be the first step in forming the committee.
So then that's where I feel you may need to go back to the drawing board and maybe represent that aspect, especially in regards to, what would the committee look like? like what people are you looking to have a part of that committee? I think that's very important, and I'm all for having the committee formed. I'm not in favor in regards to the moratorium aspect of it because I feel it's gonna cause some issues for us.
So Carl, the bylaws, and again, it was interesting, the comment about Duxbury with a general bylaw. So in the last time we did this, we didn't have the expertise, and we felt very uncomfortable about trying to create a general bylaw with the expertise we had. We knew zoning. Zoning is what I've worked with for 34 years. So we stuck with zoning, and that's because we didn't have the legal resources, the professional resources we needed on that committee to actually do that. And they looked at probably 30 different bylaws from across the New England for examples. I would point out that because we did it with volunteers and in-house staff, that's probably why we're here now, trying to have this discussion. And that's why I think we need to have that professional support. And to do that, we need funding. We don't have that kind of funding just available without town meeting appropriation.
And I'm in agreement in regards to the consensus of everyone. And I'm all for doing it, and I agree we need to do it correctly. So I don't have any other questions. So I give it back to the chair, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a lot discussed so far. I'm very much supportive of Mr. Hartman's proposal and process. I am very concerned about the moratorium without funding attached to it and having a real clear path. So I am very concerned. I do applaud and the mission of the group, and very much am in support of the overall goals. However, I don't see that the moratorium really gets us where we want to go together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Grandy?
Okay. I have no questions. I just have comments. You've listened to all the members of the planning board, Mr. Hartman, as far as this moratorium suggestion is concerned. I think it's a little ahead of schedule here, and I would agree with the rest of the planning board members. I agree a committee needs to be put together. When we review our bylaws, right, they need to be reviewed currently, as time goes by. This was done back in 2017. It's now 2026, 9 years later. Yes, but let's put together the committee with professionals in place, with the funding to be able to get help and get this thing done properly. You brought it to the forefront. You brought it to the attention of the community. I agree, we need to look at it. But to create a moratorium for 1 year, to me, I think is dangerous, in my opinion, currently the way it's written. The Morton Park culvert work. We talk about property rights. Agricultural users in Cranberries have rights across the board. People that own land, they have their rights. It's their property to develop as they see fit within the guidelines that are in place. Should we stop all construction and gravel removal across the entire town of Plymouth for a 1-year time period? What will that do? That will stop any industrial use company that would look at the town of Plymouth to invest in the town of Plymouth when they see some type of moratorium like that in place in the town of Plymouth. They won't even look at us. And it's like, I'll give you an example. If you go to a restaurant, you don't like that restaurant, you're not going to try it again for another 5 years. If this moratorium goes in place in industrial uses, which we look to increase the tax base, to help the citizens of the community that pay high taxes already, to bring business into the community. 71 Hedges Pond Road is to bring businesses into the community. That went through a long process, which I won't discuss this evening, go through that whole approval process, okay? This needs to be done correctly with all the stakeholders in place. Cranberry grower owners, the town, Board of Selectmen, town manager, town planner, the professionals in place. This will take a little bit of time. And to me, the way we operate here in town meeting form of government, it's going to take longer, I think, than a year to actually get this done the way it should properly be done. The same way that the master plan that Mr. Baldwin is working on in the planning board also. This is a process you can't just put the cart before the horse. You got to do the work, and the work needs to be done professionally, right, with the right group of people. Let's step together and work together as a group, the town, the environmentalists. I'm on many committees, and I've approved many projects that conserve land in this town. I was a town meeting member voting for conserve space through the CPC. This board wants to conserve space. We're concerned with the water, obviously, right? We don't want to sand mine, see people sand mine out and affect the groundwater in the town of Plymouth. We had regulations in place. It's supposed to be stabilized. It's supposed to be monitored. So many trucks are supposed to be done per day. There's a dewatering station. There's a stone area to keep the mud off the streets of the town as far as gravel removal is concerned. It's about enforcement. So we need the people to be able to enforce what's in place. So if we want to create a new zoning for gravel removal in Plymouth, it's going to be a little bit of a process. But believe me, if we don't do it right, another board 5 years from now is going to be sitting here looking at your group again. You're going to be coming back to the board asking us to do it again because it's still not tight enough and it's not good enough. So let's do the job properly, work together as a group with all the stakeholders. You were offered verbally and you heard what Mr. Hartman had to say. I cannot support what you have here currently this evening. I do support that we need to work together to do it the right way. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. I want to address this a little bit differently because there seems to be some disconnect that we've heard. So first, the statement was made, sir, you made the statement that I don't understand how these things are occurring because there aren't special permits applied for everything. Under our zoning bylaw, I'm a lawyer, so I go look to the documents. Under our zoning bylaw, under 203-2C3, all earth removal operations not included in Section 2 of this section require a zoning permit. Not a special permit, sir, a zoning permit. So what is a zoning permit? Well, as Mr. Hartman explained, a zoning permit is something that is obtained for almost every project. Unless you're exempt from it, every project gets a zoning permit. And that zoning permit is intended to determine whether or not you are complying with our zoning bylaw, making sure that things are done safely, securely, properly, with a minimum disturbance and disruption to the community. And if you're doing earth removal that doesn't fall within A through F of 203-2C2, those don't require a zoning permit. Those are literally not there. I redid a little koi pond in my yard this past year. I did not remove 100 cubic yards. I did not need to come to the town to ask for a zoning permit. If I was removing 100 cubic yards or more, I would have had to come to the town to ask for a zoning permit. Now, the zoning permits are regularly issued by the building commissioner for amounts in excess of those called for in 203-2C2 A through F. They're done almost on a daily basis, according to the building commissioner. So before going to prepare this, I guess my first question is, did you contact the building commissioner and ask under what circumstances are zoning permits with earth removal issued? Was that a conversation that was had with the building commissioner?
Yes, I and another member of PSA met with Jason Silva, it'll be 3 weeks ago on Monday, and had actually a wonderful conversation with him. And we asked specifically about the exempted ones that you just listed from 202-2, A through F, and said, would these be impacted by that moratorium? And at that time, we were told he believed no, because he maintains the discretion to allow other things to happen with these smaller projects. I personally hold building licenses in the state of Massachusetts. I do building. I have a landscape design build company, but through that process, I knew that a lot of my life is bringing the inside out and the outside in, and so I got my building licenses about 15 years ago. Almost all of eastern Massachusetts uses the same online permitting process. And one thing I can't get an answer from here is why excavation details are not asked in the zoning permitting process nor in the building permitting process for residential building. So my question to you gentlemen, I'd love to be illuminated because I can't seem to get a straight answer anywhere. If we don't ask about excavation and we don't ask about amounts of excavation, then how can this even have any applicability? The first time that someone visits the site is usually for a foundation inspection for the footings. That's usually the first visit that we have from inspectional services. So how can these, we were asked if there were any outstanding sand and gravel permits currently in the town of Plymouth. We were told there were no open permits currently. They're not awarded because they're not asked for in the permitting process. I would love clarity on this, but that's my understanding at this point.
So you're saying that Mr. Silva said he has discretion over other projects under your moratorium?
That these small projects, we intend not to be affected.
Well, the projects in A through F do not require a zoning permit, so they wouldn't be affected by your moratorium.
Right, for earth removal.
Correct,
Right.
for earth removal. But your article says, your proposed article says, except for the earth removal operations described in 203-2C2 A through F, no zoning permit or special permit may be issued for earth removal.
For large scale.
No,
earth
it doesn't say that. I just read your, no zoning permit or special permit may be issued for earth removal under section 203-2C. Quote, that's what you're proposing. You didn't say no zoning permit for large scale. You didn't say no permit in excess of a certain amount. You didn't define what you call large scale. You said none. That's the problem that we have to start with. None. So let's talk about what none means. One of the things that we talk about is the fact that every project requires a zoning permit in some fashion. Residential, commercial, agricultural, municipal. So we heard about Morton Park. We have a plan to do a culvert in Morton Park. There's a town meeting article. They're asking for money for it. That's going to require in excess of 100 cubic yards. Under the moratorium, no zoning permit can be issued for that. That's what this says. We have a proposal to do the fish ladder up at the Jenny Grist Mill. That's going to require more than hundreds of cubic yards of removal. That will be precluded under a moratorium. How much money in grants does the town have for those two projects?
I don't know. But our understanding was that Jenny Pond had already been permitted, so that was a done deal.
It's been permitted, but it hasn't received a zoning permit for removal. So it's permitted as a general matter, but it's not, there isn't a zoning earth removal permit. There are millions of dollars of grants associated with that. If the town doesn't go forward, aren't we going to lose those grants?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. So we have that issue. What about other unplanned work? Are there other items that you think could be affected by this moratorium? Drainage
Well,
work,
unplanned
perhaps?
items would be unplanned.
Correct. So wouldn't it make sense then that before we put a moratorium in place, we think in advance about what might be covered by this in an emergency basis and not have that restriction as being an absolute? Wouldn't that have been, would you agree with me that that's an potential unintended consequence of this?
Yes, I would.
Okay. So before going forward with presenting, you told me you met with Mr. Silva 3 weeks ago, but this article was presented before that, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So,
Right? Yes.
yeah, it was already on the warrant. before you-
Correct, it's on the warrant,
Okay.
yes.
And before you put it on the warrant, did you speak with the planning director, the environmental director, the DPW director, town staff, any member of this board regarding the potential consequences of this decision, of the decision to impose a moratorium with this language? Did
My
you,
understanding is that we spoke with a number of people at the town. I
Okay.
personally did not, except for my one meeting with Jason.
whom did your organization speak with regarding this moratorium before the moratorium was introduced?
Can you speak to this? You don't know either? Okay, I'm sorry, we don't know.
You don't know. Oh, I know it wasn't Mr. Hartman.
I will say I had a brief conversation with Attorney Abbott, and I did caution him about the implications of a total moratorium. But that's, I think, the only one I talked to before it was filed.
I know none of the board members present were spoken to. I certainly know I wasn't spoken to, and I've been pretty available when it comes to this sort of stuff. So we've heard about the idea of this not applying to small projects. That's something you've been very adamant about. Now that you've heard that this would actually apply to a 1,200 square foot home, if someone was going to remove, if someone was going to excavate for a basement, does that present a concern for you?
Of course.
Okay. Because you would agree with me that if you're building a 1,200 square foot home on a small lot, you're not going to have an area to store excavated material, right?
Presumably, correct.
Conversely, of course, if I'm building a home on a 3-acre lot, I've got plenty of room potentially to store excavated material, right?
Generally.
All I'd have to do is clear more land and dump that material there and grade that, and I'd be all set, right? So don't you think that that would incentivize people to build on larger lots where we don't have town infrastructure, as opposed to on smaller lots where we have infrastructure such as water and sewer?
I know that as a builder, when I have pulled excavate out, we generally lose most of it at the site. No, it's generally not taken off site. And I recognize that every single build is different. I understand that.
And especially in areas like North Plymouth where you're pulling this
Lots
up.
are tight.
Exactly. Lots are tight, nowhere to go.
Mhm.
And this moratorium doesn't take into account the idea that certain areas, like those on water and sewer, are better suited for building than those areas that would be on wells and sewers, correct? And septic, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the equation and the explanation that you're putting forward, and I think it's true, if that is the case. I just want to say that in developing the language for this warrant article, our intent all along was not to impact small-scale development and earth removal under those things. So just to be clear, we're not advocating to impact people in that way. And I mean, you're presenting to me the kind of timeline on the way things work. I don't think that we have this understanding, and I don't think that we're convinced. If it's true, then that was not our intention, and therefore that would be a real problem. But we are not convinced that this is the case.
I'm sorry, you're not convinced that what is the case?
that the current practices that allow small-scale earth removal in these kind of projects would be disrupted.
I'm sorry, so you're saying that the planning director
Town
and
council.
the building commissioner are not telling you the truth?
I'm not convinced. I'm not.
And town council
and
and-
understand it better, but this is where we're coming from. Maybe you're right. I'm just saying.
Maybe we're right? Boy, you know, I'm not a hydrologist. I'm just an attorney with 35 years doing construction work. So I think, believe it or not, I know how to read a statute. I also know how to listen to the people who actually issue the permits. And I think the problem is, as I asked you, did you speak to those people before you created this article and sent it in for town meeting? And the answer was no. So again, when we're pointing out, again, and I have no doubt that your intent was not to interfere with single-family homes, multifamily homes, I have no doubt in my mind that you did not intend that. What we're pointing out to you is that the language you have created, because we lawyers know how these things get interpreted. I spent my career interpreting these things, arguing these things in front of administrative boards, judges, appellate courts. So when we're telling you, this is how this is interpreted, this is the impact this will have, and you're telling me, I'm not convinced, that presents a problem for me. Because the fact of the matter is, the people who issue these permits are telling us this is how they are interpreted, this is the impact they will have. So again, and I know you want to speak, and I know, so again, for me, the question that I ask you is again, so assuming that you're wrong, if you're wrong and it does have these impacts, do you agree with me that's not something that's appropriate for Plymouth?
We do not want to disrupt small-scale construction in
Okay.
Plymouth. That is absolutely true. We would like to clarify that our article proposes, as part of the article, a moratorium on earth removal, zoning, and special permits. And I would like to understand from Mr. Hartman, under what circumstances are you currently issuing zoning permits for single-family homes?
So it's not, so the difference here is a zoning permit versus a special permit. So what happens now, and again, maybe this is part of the process that would have to go through with the building commissioner to talk about what he does when a foundation is built on a house or on a business. And that would be a great example of something that a committee would go through. Right now, what happens is if somebody's building a house, they would come in, the building commissioner will look at the plans, the landscaping, the site, and say, what you're doing here for a 30 by 30 house is reasonable. Issue a zoning permit. Then he can go and get his building permit and build his house. If this goes in place and you've got a 30 by 30, he's now going to say, I need a certification from an engineer how much material you're going to remove. And if it's over the 200 cubic yards, the answer is no. You can't build your 30 by 30 house. That's very different than what happens when you start talking about bigger amounts that should or do or don't trigger a special permit where you may want that kind of control on a bigger project. We're talking about something bigger than a 50 by 50 building, but smaller than, say, 100,000 or 50,000 square foot building. And that middle piece is the piece that's going to get nailed through this process.
I want to say that we focused on the exemptions in order to try to continue that.
No, I understand.
And the question for you is, did we miss something in the bylaw about discretion that also should have been mentioned, or is it explicitly stated in the bylaw?
So the bylaw right now has discretion. Your moratorium takes that out. It says, under no circumstance can you issue a permit or allow excavation over 100 cubic yards, period. The discretion is totally removed the way you wrote that article. And again, not just me, talk to town council, talk to the building commissioner. So that's the difference. So you say small scale, so that is 99 cubic yards or 199 cubic yards for a single-family house. Once you trigger over that, no discretion. The building commissioner has that now, but once you trigger that, that discretion's gone. I think what you want to do is look at that in-between area and try to figure out how we deal with that, and then how do we deal with the bigger projects. That would be done through a process. And again, government is slow. It's not 6 months, and it's probably not a year. I wish I had a project that only took a year. I've done many of these, and you want to do it right, and the public process committees, it takes time to do it right.
So I'll answer the last questions while you have. You want to know where the discretion is. 203-2, C3, Roman numeral small I and II. That talks about the fact that the building commissioner makes the determination whether the removal is objectively necessary and incidental, not of such scale or character as to require special conditioning, otherwise applicable in compliance with the bylaw, or occurring in certain commercial zones and incidental to a lawful use. Under those circumstances, he has the discretion to say that no special permit is necessary, meaning he may issue a zoning permit for that. That's where the discretion is. So the discretion is built into our current bylaw. That's what I think you missed. I think you missed the fact that after the no permit is required, there's a zoning permit section, and if you meet all of the zoning permit requirements, that is within the discretion of the building commissioner to then issue the zoning permit and not require a special permit. If you don't meet all of those conditions, then a special permit is required. You move on to the next step, which is the ZBA. Now, if the building commissioner has a question about their discretion, they come to the planning board, and they ask the planning board for guidance. And we provide an advisory opinion to the building commissioner, who, once again, ultimately makes the final decision within their discretion. This moratorium takes away that discretion which we understand is exercised on a more than regular basis. And that will have, to use your own words, a catastrophic effect on the town for a period of a year. I think that the impact on individuals who are looking to build their home and have to sit around maybe for another year because they can't clear their property and have to pay a year's rent, that's a problem. I think that small businesses that might be considering locating here, and I'll go farther to say medium-sized businesses. How about the medical clinics that have recently opened in town? How about the new ambulatory surgical center that's being constructed in our industrial park? None of those could be built. If we're not building them, if we're shutting them out for a year, they're going somewhere else. These are businesses. They understand they want to build something. They don't need to be in Plymouth. They can be in Carver. They can be in Plimpton. They can be in Kingston. It'll work for them. They'll go where it makes sense. So we're going to lose those businesses. Multifamily housing. I went and looked. I couldn't find a multifamily housing project, and that means 4 units or more, that fit within this 1,000 square foot requirement. There hasn't been one. Now, that's for new construction. Obviously, if you're rehabbing something existing, that's a different story. But for new construction, they take that out. They have to, because we're trying to build them in our developed areas where we have infrastructure. So you would be shutting down all multifamily housing, in essence, or almost all, for a year. And that's, by the way, where all of our affordable housing is coming from these days. So once again, Plymouth would fall behind for another year on affordable housing, with the exception of the couple of 40Bs that are going forward. We're at least in some measure of safe harbor for now. So we've got time. We've got time to do this and do this bylaw correctly and still do it within the time frame of being in safe harbor. Because once we're out of that, 40Bs will not be will not apply to this. They are exempt from our zoning bylaw. So we don't want to lose out on the promise of good development, on use of our property properly by those who own it. What we want to stop is we want to stop the inappropriate use of property, of land. And I'm hearing a lot of things that people are saying. I've looked at your presentation, and I heard about scarring the land and clearing this and clearing that. Well, that's not just done in excavation. When you clear for development, you clear for development. We're not going to stop. Your moratorium doesn't stop somebody from clearing the land. And it doesn't stop them from digging if they want to dig. It just stops them from taking it off the property. All it does is says, okay, you can't remove it from the property, so pile it up here. I think blowing piles of sand are probably even worse. So, to echo what Mr. Hartman said originally, I appreciate the intent, and we are willing to, and have been willing to work on it. And I think, again, hopefully you will see in the guidance that we're about to, that I'll introduce, not the next meeting, but the meeting after now, that we're making an effort to do exactly what you're asking, which is to curtail those inappropriate uses. But unfortunately, I don't think your moratorium is the right way to do it. I think the unintended consequences, what things you did not expect to happen, which you acknowledge are detrimental to the town, would occur under that. And I think that is going to be a challenge that you face in putting this forward. I don't think this was quite thought out the way you were hoping it would be thought out. And I think hopefully what you've learned from this is that you need to engage the town in this process before you go forward. So we could have had this conversation in a room somewhere, quite quietly, quite politely, and gone through all of this, and we could have avoided this if we wanted to go forward with that. And hopefully, when we do this next time, and we will do this again, I have no problem with that. We will absolutely be doing this again. Hopefully, we'll be doing it in a cooperative manner to come up with a properly formed committee that has a real chance of making some substantive changes that can be supported by science and law. And I will give you the last word.
Okay, thanks. I just want to say that I think that we all want the same end game, and that you stated it. It's the inappropriate extraction of sand, and that's what we're trying to get to. That's why the second prong of our fork is to have a committee, and there is no restriction on what type of committee or what's involved in what we wrote. I think what's missing here, and that a lot of town residents are concerned about, and even town meeting members, is what happens in the interim between now and when we finally get to what we all want as the end result, which is a revised and more appropriate bylaw or more appropriate administration of it. What happens to prevent these inappropriate uses that clearly many people think are going on right now, and I'd like to know what you guys think about that.
Sure. Mr. Hartman, since the change in our bylaw in 2017, how many projects of over 500,000 cubic yards of sand and gravel has the town approved?
3. So one is the Darby Pond, so it was done in cooperation with the town, 1 million cubic yards, and that was to replace bogs by the Darby Pond in a different location to protect our aquifer and protect the well source for that. The other 2 are the Collins Ave and the Hedges Pond Road property.
Well, Hedges Pond is actually 270,000.
Right, but neither of those, those were determined through a process to be reasonable for an end use. And I have to say, too, I've stayed out of the Hedges Pond Road. We spent 2 years working with the community. We protected 134 acres of land. That land happens to also be land that was part of the Herring Pond land. We got $2 million for road improvements in return for having 30-acre development footprint next to a landfill. That 30 acres represents about 23% of all of the available land we have in the town for commercial industrial development. I understand the concerns, the pressure I get every day from the community to look at things to mitigate the residential tax bill and to find places for commercial development is overwhelming. It's one of the things I hear all the time. But yet, when we try to come up with a process, and this is a good example where we protected 134 acres adjacent as mitigation for 30-acre development footprint, it's hard for me to deal with how do we get to this point where this causes so much problems. And it wasn't something that just happened. We worked for over a year with the residents down there to explain what we were doing. Now, maybe there's something we talk about with gravel removal as it relates to that, but in comparison to what we need for commercial land, this is almost a quarter of what we have left in the town. There's not much commercial land left in this town.
I think the concern about protecting our aquifer is a valid one. In fact, I know it is. It's something that I have been adamant, and it's in fact why it is an element of every portion of our proposed master plan. We didn't make a separate category for aquifer protection. We required it to be part of every category in our master plan. But at the same time, we hear alarmist statements being made that aren't accurate. You said 20+ million cubic yards. And yet, since we've changed our bylaw, 1 million cubic yards for a project that everybody agreed was necessary to protect a well, and beyond that, about 750, well, even call it 800,000 cubic yards. Now, do I like what has happened on Collins Ave? No, I do not. I was the alternate when that project was approved. I didn't vote on that, so I didn't get a chance to put my legal spin on protecting it. But I would have supported the general proposition of creating a business area in our industrial park for the purposes of industrial development. And that's what we were supposed to be doing. Should we be preventing that from being developed or cleared without development plans really being there? Yes, we should. And that's where we should be focusing. And that's what this guidance will be focusing on. But I want to remind people that that was a board that voted for that, that included Malcolm McGregor, Brigitte Keene, Frank Mand, Mr. Grandy, and the late Paul McAuliffe. All people with long histories of concern for protecting the environment in the town of Plymouth. So this was not something that they did lightly, glibly, flippantly, or certainly with the idea of causing harm to the town. And the vitriol that this board and others have received as a result of decisions that they've made in good faith to help the benefit of the town is neither productive nor really appropriate. I'm not accusing you folks of doing that. Let's be clear. Your presentation tonight was professional, courteous. You have been civil and appropriate, and I greatly appreciate your coming forward and taking some tough commentary, and I know that. But at the same time, when you say the town is scared, the town has a right to be concerned about its aquifer. It should be concerned about its aquifer. But it shouldn't be scared that every corner of this town is being scarred and raped, and that's the word that's been used regularly, because that's not what's happening. Now, yes, has there been large-scale development in the past? Absolutely. Is all of it appropriate? No, of course not. That's why we changed things in 2017. But we do have ongoing permits, things that we can't stop, things that your moratorium will not stop, things that a future bylaw change cannot stop. It's just the way of the world, unfortunately. It's the way the law goes with property rights. So, again, the goal has to be to encourage the residents to participate in a process that is productive. Because if all I get from people, and we had to do this recently again, if all I get from people is stop building anything, that's the comment I get. when we talk about, well, what do we need to do for Plymouth? Stop building anything. That is neither productive nor realistic. We want both productive and realistic discussions on all aspects, especially something as important as protecting our aquifer. So thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Thank you very much for answering the questions. Hopefully, we were able to answer some of yours as well, and maybe we can move forward with this and try and come up with a better proposal that will really accomplish what it is I think you really are legitimately trying to accomplish, which is to stop the improper large-scale removal of sand and gravel from Plymouth, and that is something that this board both supports and applauds. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Now, you make a
Any
procedure.
further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Since this is a town meeting article, I will phrase it in the affirmative. Does the planning board support the article as proposed? A yes vote means yes, we support it. A no vote means no, we do not support it.
Just for the record, point out that we do have a draft recommendation that staff prepared for you too.
Right. So, I will entertain a motion to vote on whether or not we approve this. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion's made.
Motion is so made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. I will call.
Could you just clarify that? Because the proposal,
Is in the
this
negative.
proposal is different than, I just want to make sure it's clear what we're voting on.
The vote would be to support it would be a yes vote, to not support it would be a no.
For what you wrote.
So a no vote this would be entry that the board
Voted X to X, not to support or to support. That's how it will be. This is.
no vote would say that the board will vote 5-0 not to support.
If it goes 5-0.
If that's the case, however it goes.
Yeah. Well, it'd be 4-0 and an alternate.
And the alternate vote.
The alternate can vote, but we would record that as part of the vote.
All right.
Well, we would record it as the alternate vote.
Motion made.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded. Okay, I'm going to call a roll. Mr. Bennett, do you support the article?
No.
Mr. Donaldson, do you support the article?
No.
Mr. Grandy, do you support the article?
No.
Mr. Smith, do you support the article?
No.
And I do not support the article. So that's the vote on that. Final matter on our agenda this evening, B509, 10 Citation Drive. This was something we had put back on the agenda to discuss if there was a basis for discussion between the property owners. Do I have either property owner or neighbor here? Mr. Hartman, I understand that the planning department has been contacted and told that the developer has decided to cut the foundation.
It is our understanding. So I wouldn't want to say definitively, but it's our understanding that he's amending the foundation to comply with zoning.
Okay, and as a result, they are not here, so there is no further action to be taken by this board. That concludes our formal agenda for this evening. Any new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson?
Yes?
Mr. Grandy?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.